order to find time for the mummied cats, the bazaars, the silver scarves, the red and black pottery, and the images of wolves, crocodiles, and camels cheap enough to be freely bought for poor relations at home. Antoun and I hinted at business which must prevent our joining the sightseers, who would be chaperoned by the dragoman. Luckily they got the idea into their heads that our affairs were connected with Sir Marcus and the trip. We were pitied rather than blamed, but our real difficulty was with Mrs. East, as Monny did not wish Cleopatra to be let into the secret. If she knew, she would want to be in the adventure, and in Monny's opinion Aunt Clara was a dear, but unfitted for adventures. We planned that Brigit and Monny should call upon the wife of Rashid Bey, whose house would be easy to find. If they were admitted, they would try to bring her out, as if for a drive, for it seemed a case of now or never if she were to escape. In case she were able to come, they would take her straight to the American consulate, which I was to visit meanwhile, in order to explain matters. But if the rescuers were refused admission, the consul must be entreated to give help. I, as a diplomat, was considered a suitable person to deal with this side of the affair, and Antoun Effendi was to keep unobtrusive guard within sight of Rashid's house until Brigit and Monny, with or without a companion, should come forth safely. As I said, however, the difficulty was Mrs. East. She would expect her niece, if not Brigit, to go about with her, and would not be easily persuaded to join any other party. As for Rachel, we need not think of her, as she had been annexed by the Biddles, who would otherwise have lost Harry Snell. But Cleopatra! What to do with Cleopatra? It was Anthony who had an inspiration. There lived near Asiut, it seemed, an Italian who bred Sicilian lapdogs, said to be like those which had been the favourite pets in the day of Cleopatra the Great. Indeed, Antony was supposed to have given one to the Queen. Now, Fenton asked permission to present his Sicilian lapdog to Mrs. East, a dog so small, so polite that he could be taken anywhere. Anthony could not go himself to select the gift, but would find an interpreter as a guide to the kennel and bring her back to the exploring party. Cleopatra, delighted with her hero's thoughtfulness, caught at the idea, and when the set went tearing furiously away in arabeahs or on donkeys, Mrs. East followed sedately in a carriage with the elderly Greek interpreter, and Miss Hassett Bean, who also fancied the idea of a Sicilian lapdog, to replace the lamented marmoset. Everything glittered at Asiut. The sun glittered on the water, palm trees and gardens glittered as the wind waved their big green fans, the white or pink facades of large square houses glittered, those fine houses along the Nile, in one of which Rashid Bey was known to live. But brighter than all glittered the silver scarves which Arabs begged us to buy. Hanging over arms raised to show them off, the shining folds glittered like cascades of running water in moonlight. "Very cheap, very beautiful," cried the merchants. "Ladies, see here, your gentlemen, they buy for you." In spite of Antoun's dignified refusals, putting the men off till our return, they ran after us, waving scarves and shawls and robes, white as scintillating hoarfrost, pink as palest roses, pale as sunset clouds, green and golden as Nile water, or sequined black as a night of stars. Their vendors feared that if we did not buy of them, others might beguile us, and saw danger ahead in a distant group of rivals crowding round some tourists from another boat. This group we had to pass, and as we did so, who should break out from the glittering ring but Bedr! He came toward us, humble and cringing, giving the beautiful Arab salute. "Dear gentlemen and ladies," he exclaimed, "I am very happy to see you again. Won't you shake hands, to forgive, because I meaned no harm, and did no wrong thing but to obey the sweet ladies' wish when they would go to that house of the crocodile. I am too much punished when I've been sent away." "That's past now, and forgotten," said Monny, shrinking slightly from the outstretched hand. "Perhaps it wasn't your fault, that trouble we got into, but we didn't need you afterward, anyhow, and probably the people you are with now are nicer to you than we were." "Oh, no peoples could be nicer, though they are very nice, my two gentlemans you seed me with in the desert. They travel with me yet. We go everywhere by trains, because it takes not so much time as the boats. And Miss Guest, that nice good young lady, is she well?" "Yes, she is very well," replied Miss Gilder, beginning to be restless, her beauty-loving eyes avoiding Bedr's face, as had been her habit when the man was in our employ. She did not like to hurt his feelings. Monny can't bear to hurt the feelings of anyone below herself in wealth or situation, though apparently she doesn't consider that one is bound to be kind-hearted with the rich. But I could see that she wanted to escape. Never had she liked Bedr. He had been Rachel's man from the first. "Miss Guest has gone to see the tombs," Monny explained. "You not go there, and to the bazaars? I take my gentleman in a few minutes." "We shall go by and by. Just now we've other things to do," said the girl evasively, rather too evasively, perhaps. But in the hope of killing two birds with one stone, luring the man to betray his secret if he had one, and then shunting him, I broke in: "How have you been getting on?" I inquired, looking into the squint eyes, "since that night I saw you at Medinet el Fayûm?" But the eyes opened wide with a stare of innocence. "You see me there, milord? I thought your party had not come when we went away. My gentleman not like that camping place, and we stay there not even one night. You must make mistake, and think some other man me. Sure!" We could not help laughing at the "sure." It was spoken in so truly an American way that it was funny on those lips. Afterward, however, it struck me in remembering the scene, that the man's accent in speaking English was even more distinctly American than it had been. This was odd if he had been associating with Germans, but natural if his new clients were Americans. Another question was on my tongue, but before I had time to speak, Monny cried out: "Oh, there's Wretched Bey in a carriage, all alone with some luggage. I hope he's going away." Naturally we turned, but I saw Biddy raise her eyebrows warningly. The girl looked puzzled, as if for an instant she did not see what she had done that was wrong. But I guessed that Biddy's distrust of Bedr as a possible spy was still alive in her breast. She did not know of my suspicions concerning the camp thief, for the affair at Medinet, thanks to a white fib or two, had never assumed serious proportions in her mind. It did not need that, however, to make her feel that Bedr's ears were not fit receptacles for secrets. Monny had not been mistaken. It was Rechid Bey, leaning comfortably back in an old-fashioned but not badly appointed open carriage, drawn by two very decent horses, and driven by a smart, red-sashed, white-robed negro. We saw him in profile as he passed along the road at some distance, but he was reading a paper with an expression so placid that I felt sure that he had not seen us. On the seat beside him was a suit-case with the air of having been made in France, and circumstantial evidence said that Monny's wish was to be granted. I glanced hastily at Bedr, to observe, if I could, whether the girl's impulsive exclamation had aroused undue interest, for it was not unlikely that he had seen Rechid Bey and Mabel landing at Alexandria the night of his first meeting with us. But the ugly face showed nothing. "If you have things you want to do, my ladies," he said, "please excuse that I have kept you. I go to my gentlemen, or they give the men with the silver shawls too much money." The gentlemen in question were the more interested in observing our movements than in completing any bargain with the street vendors. Nevertheless, Bedr hastened back as if in great fear that they might be cheated. An arabeah waited for them, and having bought a scarf or two, they drove off before we had parted to go our several ways. An arabeah was in attendance upon us also, and we put Brigit and Monny into it alone, for Rechid Bey's house, the driver informed us, was not far off. "Good luck," I said encouragingly, and Brigit smiled gaily at me, but Monny was looking at Fenton. She was telling him something with her eyes, and with a significant little gesture she touched the small leather handbag she carried. "One would think she was a suffragette with a bomb," I remarked to Anthony, trying to speak easily, as though I were not at all anxious when the carriage had turned its back on us. "Instead of which," said Anthony, gazing at the dark head and the fair head, as earnestly as if he never expected to see them again, "instead of which she's merely a brave girl with a pistol that she knows how to use. Or anyhow, she says she does." "Good heavens! Has she got one in that bag?" I gasped. "She has, my Browning." "By Jove! You gave it to her?" "I did, last night." My heart began suddenly to feel like a cannon ball in my breast. I felt that I had not understood the situation, and that now I did not understand Anthony, though that was far from being a new sensation. "I thought that you thought there was no danger," I bleated. "You know Egypt and I don't. I didn't want them to go in for this thing, but when you said it would be all right I yielded. I wish to heaven I hadn't." "Do you think if you hadn't given in, Miss Gilder would have given up?" "You and I together could have kept them both out of the business." "Only by sheer force. You see, Miss Gilder was interested in this girl and fond of her before she met you. So was Mrs. East. As Rechid tricked the pretty little